In this episode of the 340 Banter podcast, Chelsea and I are joined by Ted Slafsky from the 340B Report. We will be discussing his background in journalism, how he came to the 340B world, and then how he returned to journalism just with the 340B spin. Ted, thanks for joining us. I think we really want to start today talking about your background. I think it's very unique compared to a lot of the people that end up in 340B. So I think that would be a great place to really start our conversation.
Sure. The only time I've ever been to a pharmacy is to pick up some medicine. So, no, to be honest with you, over the years, I've spent a lot of time visiting our member hospitals when I was the CEO of 340B Health. But actually, you're right, I'm not a clinician by trade. I'm actually began my career as a journalist. I worked at U.S. News and World Report. Just out of college, began being involved in journalism in middle school, and started became the managing editor of the high school newspaper after my brother. And
a family affair.
it is. And for a long time, I was thinking that my career would be in journalism. Always been interested in reporting on the news, and my father was a doctor, so I was interested in healthcare.
At U.S. News, what was like your niche for reporting?
Well, I started off working for a really great mentor. His name was David Gergen. David was the editor at large at the publication and a former advisor to 4 U.S. presidents.
Oh, cool.
So David Gergen was an excellent mentor. I helped him get ready for his television appearances on what was called the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour on PBS. And then also helped him write his editorials and also his speeches, and then also got to do some of my own reporting in education and healthcare, and then got the bite. I just got really interested in that topic, and the next thing you know, I'm applying to graduate school, getting an opportunity to go to Duke University, got a master's in public policy. And then I got another great opportunity. I was hired to work as a fellow during the Clinton Healthcare Reform Initiative on Capitol Hill.
Oh.
So I was able to spend time with the majority leader at the time, Majority Leader George Mitchell, and his deputy Tom Daschle, who became the majority leader from South Dakota. And then I was really lucky to get hired to get involved in the 340B program, which at the time, of course, I'd never heard of it.
It was brand new, and I think that that tie to the legislature, I think, is great experience to really understand the nuances of the 340B program. Being a federal program, it's got that. We're always thinking back to congressional action, and especially in recent years, talking about possible reforms to the program.
Yeah, I was able to spend a lot of time on Capitol Hill during my first couple of decades in Washington. Basically moved to Washington right out of college. I went to college in Boston and got to start working at U.S. News. And then suddenly, when I got hired to be the executive director of 340B Health, it was at the time a very small trade group of hospitals in the 340B program that had just found out about this great drug discount program. And I ended up spending a lot of time in the halls of Congress, getting to know both Republican and Democratic lawmakers, and developing some really strong relationships on Capitol Hill.
What were some of the conversations early on? Because this was kind of in the early years of the 340B program. What were some of the conversations or challenges at the time? I know we've had a lot more, growth and development and new challenges in the 340B program now. But what were the conversations being had around the 340B program at that time?
Well, it's funny because it was sort of, in some ways, sort of a mixed message. Largely, it was one of, oh my God, this program's amazing. I can't believe that we can get access to these discounts. It's going to be really important to our hospital or to our clinic in our mission. But even back then, while the drug industry was not as concerned about the program as they are now, it was not easy. They've always been the most powerful group in Washington, at least in the healthcare sector.
Yeah.
So there were threats to the program going back to the 90s, including one amendment that almost made it through the House that would have made the program voluntary for the drug industry, which would have been basically the death knell
Yes.
to
Oh, yeah,
the 340B
Yes.
program. So I had some sleepless nights even in the 1990s, but those sleepless nights continued to become more regular with the passage of the Affordable Care Act in 2010.
Yeah. With your early time with 340B Health, what was, I know it was small when you started. What was the role of 340B Health at that time? Was it really helping these hospitals understand the program and implement the program? Or tell us a little bit about that time.
Yeah, that was a critical component of the trade association. Most people did not know anything about the program. And so my mentor, Bill Von Osen, who hired me, helped write the 340B law. So he knew the law back and forth. He knew every excerpt of each statute. And I'm not, a lawyer, but I play one on TV, so it worked well enough.
Felicity likes to say she has her junior legal decoder badge. If you'd like to steal that, you're welcome to.
Right.
I'll offer it to you on her behalf.
Oh, right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So spent a lot of time basically educating hospitals as well as members of Congress and their staff, as well as various administrations from both parties about how important 340B is and how to implement it. And it was certainly, it's never been easy. It gets more complicated now with the potential for rebates and having to provide all this claims data to 340B ESP. So I'd say we're at a particularly challenging time with the program.
Yeah, it's definitely changed from when we entered the program. I entered the program about 10 years ago, and it was a lot different than it is now. And it's more complicated for covered entities to really manage their program.
It definitely. What do you see as, some of the, I don't want to say challenges because there's so many, but, what do you see maybe coming down the pike in the next, let's say 2 years for the 340B program? Not that anybody has a crystal ball, and there are a lot of things that could impact which way the wind blows here. But what are you watching these days in the 340B world?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect that in 2020 that the pharmaceutical manufacturers would start to unilaterally place restrictions on the program in the contract pharmacy setting. That has really grown, as you know, to become more and more of a challenge. Unfortunately, I don't see a panacea. I do see the possibility of more states enacting protections that will help restore these discounts. I think they're going to be moving fairly slowly in Washington. There will be a lot of bills that will be introduced and a lot of hearings that will occur over the next year or two. But whether they can come to a consensus in a Congress that's so deeply divided, particularly in the House where...
Such a small majority in both houses, too.
That's right. That's right. And in the House, it's, I think, the second smallest majority in history.
Really?
So that's going to be very tough. But nonetheless, I think that 340B providers, as you know, Logan, who's spent a lot of time advocating with your lawmakers, it's going to be under the radar screen. And and I'm sure you're going to be, I think you've already, did you go and do some lobbying a month ago in Washington? Or?
Yeah, in February, I was on the Hill and talking to lawmakers. One of the coolest experiences is one of the congressional members from my health center that covers part of my health center is on energy and commerce. He's been a huge 340B advocate and is now a co-chair of the Community Health Center Caucus
Oh, good.
in the House. So he has been a huge advocate for health centers and for 340B, even from his time when he was at the state legislature. But it's always great talking to him and being able to, when we were in the room, he's telling his aide the great things that 340B is doing. It didn't require the health center staff to tell him that. So I think that that's a great topic. What would you say for covered entities who may not have government affairs or advocacy in their job title? What advice would you give to these covered entity staff to advocate for the program?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important that everyone involved at the institution that you work at is engaged on the advocacy side. Now, you may not get the assignment of going to go visit your lawmakers, or perhaps you might get to meet them when they come to your local facility, but you might not get to go to Washington each time, but you certainly can serve as a resource to your team. And that is critically important. So if the CEO is delegated or the government relations director is delegated with the assignment of telling the 340B story, they're going to need you to be in the behind the scenes helping to explain it. Now, often you are more than just behind the scenes. Often you are brought into meetings and become an advocate and get involved. And that's what we loved about our 340B Health lobby days, is that we would get a variety of attendees, not only those who are at the C-suite level, but those who may be in the basement at the hospital working behind the scenes.
Oh, do you mean in the pharmacy? Because that's where the hospital pharmacy
in the
always
dungeon.
is.
You've got it. That's right. Yes.
You never saw the light of day.
Yes. It's a consistent theme over the years. I've been to many hospital basements looking for the pharmacy department. Now, that is starting to change, as you probably know. But nonetheless, there is something about that basement that maybe keeps people who aren't supposed to wander in there from walking in there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right,
That's fair.
right.
Security reasons.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about the transition from 340B Health kind of back into the world of journalism. So you've still stayed with 340B, but kind of gone back to your roots. And as you said, you always thought you'd end up in journalism and you found your way back there. Talk to us about that transition.
Yeah, so in 2018, I left 340B Health after a 22-year career, largely as the CEO of the organization, and that was a remarkable experience. Got to do a lot of writing there because we would write op-eds and do a lot of other types of writing, but I was not, necessarily thinking I would be back in journalism, but, I started to think about, well, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? I'm, at the time I was in my early 50s, and I thought, well, I know 340B really well. I know someone who also knows 340B really well, a person named Tom Murga, who also worked at 340B Health, and I know he cared deeply about the program and was an excellent writer and reporter. So I reached Tom and I said, Tom, how about we start this newsletter? And he said, well, Ted, there's not going to be enough to cover. Little did he know.
So it's his fault. It's his fault we're here.
He thought first we'll be once a week, and now we're almost every day.
Sometimes twice in one day.
Right. So it's we've grown. We got a very good editorial staff. I know, Logan, you got to meet Shannon at the Ohio Pharmacists Association meeting, and thank you for the invitation.
We've also had her on Ladies Lunch and Learn. She's been a wealth of information for us.
And I've worked with Bella and Will as well. And I think it's a great resource for us to have. I think it provides that timely information to the covered entities in a way they can understand it. I mean, we live in this world, so we might find out about it before 340B report publishes, but most health center and covered entity staff won't. That is their source of the information. So
I will say, even internally, it's a race for us. Like if if one of us knows something before it comes through a 340B report, like we have like a little celebration leadership team, like, hey, we actually beat 340B report.
Yes.
Because you guys are always in the know, on the boots on the ground, making sure you got your finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Well, a lot of it comes from great sources, and your consulting firm has been incredibly helpful to us. So thank you for all of your intelligence. Felicity and the team are really quite wonderful to us. And we have some really good sources in the government, as well as in that, in the field. So it's been so much fun, and it's. We are very, very happy when there's breaking news. Now, sometimes the news is a little depressing, but we have to break it anyway.
Yeah, sometimes that email coming through with breaking news is it's 4 p.m. on Friday and no one wants to read it.
Right.
But it's definitely great to have it, because I know when I entered the program, you had to search the internet to find anything about 340B. It was very vague references. So to have a news source that's dedicated to it has been beneficial for the community.
How do you guys manage, there's so many stakeholders with different views, perspectives, priorities. How do you find it difficult to manage kind of staying, somewhat in the middle of all of that and representing all sides equally?
Sure. No, that's definitely a challenge. I mean, especially considering I spent 22 years as an advocate for the program, and then suddenly I'm back to being a journalist again.
Which doesn't stop you from having feelings.
Sure. Most of those feelings come out in my monthly column. I write a monthly column for one of the sponsors of our publication called Verity Solutions. My latest column came out today. And so I get a lot of those sort of more thought leader expressions about my feelings, just like if you were working for the Wall Street Journal or the Post or the Times. They have an editorial staff. So that's how I do it. We try to be fair to both sides when we do our reporting, cover all the news, whether, as I mentioned, it may not be the best news, but we will report it anyway. But then I get to write my column and give talks. And then I get
have an outlet for the inside thoughts.
Get to be a little bit more opinionated.
Yeah.
And we're doing this podcast. It's I know you guys recently started a podcast, and I've been watching it on YouTube. So tell us a little bit about what you've learned there and where you see that going in the future as well. Sure.
Well, we're going to be moving our studios to Tennessee after this meeting. Considering how professional you guys do your shows. No, maybe one day we'll be able to have a nice studio like this. But it's called Inside 340B Report. It comes out every 2 weeks. It's a conversation between the journalists at 340B Report on the topics of the day. And it's been a lot of fun. It's a whole new medium for us, and we are still trying to get the kinks out, but it's been really quite good. And I think every podcast we do is better because it becomes less scripted and more comfortable. Which
has got to be hard for a writer, because you spend so much time making sure you have, you've picked the exact right word for what you wanted to explain. That'd be harder to go off the cuff.
It can be. And you're sort of like mad at yourself if you say something that's not entirely correct, but it's all right. We can always do a retake if needed.
Yeah. I think it's a nice way. We've had a lot of podcasts in 340B emerge over the last 2 years. And I think the mixture of them gives folks in the space a plethora of ways to get information, and on different topics. I think, you guys being able to provide information not only through the 340B report in a written format, but also then through your podcast is a way to stay up on the news, what's happening right now. And then you've got, plenty of other podcasts in the space that also give kind of the color commentary, I'll say, on what's going on in the space, be able to expand on it and maybe not be the breaking news source, but be able to provide the additional perspectives to it, which I think is a nice way for covered entity staff or other 340B stakeholders to be able to stay up to date and learn. As Logan said, I mean, a decade ago, you had to work hard to find anything besides just you got the statute and then the federal guidance notices, but you didn't have a whole lot else besides, Apexis has been great with their resources, but there wasn't really, insight from other folks in the space or a way to get breaking news on the 340B program. So I think this has been a great evolution for at least being able to self-educate.
And I think it makes it an accessible information for people that learn in a different way. I mean, sometimes it's easier for me to hear that auditory interaction and be able to grasp things better. So
you and me both. When I read, my brain goes to a different place.
Yeah, so, and for people, I talked to someone a couple weeks ago that has a long commute to their health center, and they said the podcast, all the different podcasts have been beneficial to them because they're learning as they're commuting in an accessible way. So
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I find all of the 340B podcasts to be beneficial to me. I do a lot of walking, and so or cleaning dishes. So I listen to a lot of 340B podcasts while I'm doing that, and that's a good way for me to keep on top of the program and learn things that I would say are value added. As you mentioned,
340B
340B report will provide the nuts and bolts, but the more deep dives occur through venues like this. So we're very lucky to have you guys join the community, and congratulations. I know it's going to be a big success.
Thank you.
We're very excited, and you guys just beat us, but we're on your heels, and we're excited to enter into the space. And I think it'll just be a good resource for the community and all these options, the webinar platforms. We've got blogs and 340B report and now podcast. It's just creating so many more resources for covered entity staff who struggle to stay on top of the news, the commentary, the education in 340B. So I'm happy that we've turned that page and become it where we have a lot more resources for covered entities.
Yeah. Well, with that, any final thoughts you have about kind of the future of 340B or the prospects we're headed into, or around just where to access 340B news or how to process it? Sure.
I mean, for 340B, I think that hopefully at some point we will have a resolution to the contract pharmacy battle, because this is getting a little crazy with the amount of work people have to put into to just try to access discounts that should be not that hard to access.
I think that'll come at I think the price for that is increased transparency for all the players. I think that's how we ended up where we are.
Yep.
And I think that increased transparency is the price
for
a way forward.
I think you're right. Yeah. So we will see at some point a national resolution to this issue. I think it might take a while, as I mentioned, with Congress having different views. As for 340B report, the best way to get access to it is just go to 340breport.com. You can get a special discount as a FQHC 340B client or potential client.
Listener.
Yes, or listener to this great podcast by just using a discount code, 25% discount using FQHC 340B 25. And we don't have to worry about, I think it's all caps, so that works. Yeah.
Well, we really thank you for your time. It's interesting. I learned things that I didn't know about you, and I think that that's great, and to know the history of what you've done for this program. So we appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Logan. I appreciate all your great work. And Chelsea, thank you for the invite. So,
Thank
so
you.
excited to be down in Nashville, even if it's going to be snowing this evening.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.